Welcome, curious minds, to the Sleepy God. If you've landed here, maybe you're winding down, looking to relax, or simply craving a little gentle curiosity before sleep. Whatever brought you, you're in just the right place. Tonight, we're going on a slow, dreamy journey through the strangest life forms this planet has to offer. We're talking about creatures, plants, and microscopic marvels that stretch the very meaning of life itself, like sea cucumbers that breathe through their behinds, or plants that spring back from the brink of death. Nature can be incredibly weird and incredibly wonderful, and we're going to explore it, one strange organism at a time. We'll move gently, unhurried. This isn't a cram session. It's a quiet evening stroll through the fringes of biology. I'll offer a small warning up front, though. I truly hope this doesn't keep you awake with sheer fascination. But if it does, well, you'll have some very peculiar facts to share with your friends at breakfast. Before we really begin, I'd love to know where in the world are you tuning in from, and what time is it for you right now? Drop your city and local time in the comments if you feel like it. It always brings a little warmth seeing how people from all over the globe are winding down together, sharing a moment of wonder before sleep. And if this kind of peaceful, curious science helps you relax, I'd be ever so grateful if you gave the like button a gentle tap and considered subscribing. It helps more sleepy explorers like you find their way here, and it means a lot. So, lights low, blankets up, brain in that cozy, dreamy space. Good, let's wander together into nature's oddest corners. One last note before we dive in. Nothing in this video is medical advice, and nothing here should be taken as such. We're here to learn and unwind, not to diagnose or treat anything, just soft science and stranger-than-fiction facts. Let's begin with life on hard mode. Picture organisms that thrive in boiling acid, that shrug off nuclear radiation, that find comfort in the deep-sea vents and the briny embrace of salt lakes. These are called extremophiles, life forms that exist where life shouldn't, while we humans panic when we drop our phones in the sink. These resilient creatures flourish in conditions we once thought utterly inhospitable. Let's start with a fan favorite, the tardigrade, often lovingly referred to as the water bear. This microscopic marvel looks like a chubby caterpillar crossed with a gummy bear. Tiny, less than a millimeter long, but almost absurdly durable. Scientists have boiled them, frozen them, zapped them with radiation, dehydrated them for years, and even launched them into space. They just keep going. Their secret, a state called cryptobiosis. When things get rough, tardigrades dry out, curl up into a tight little ball, and nearly shut down all biological activity. In this form, they can survive extreme radiation, intense heat or cold, complete dehydration, and even the vacuum of space. It's like surviving the apocalypse by taking a very good nap. And then, when conditions are better, some moisture, a little warmth, they spring back to life as if nothing happened. You could say tardigrades are the ultimate doomsday preppers, but they're far from the only extremophiles on Earth. Let's meet their heat-loving cousins, thermophiles. These microorganisms don't just tolerate high temperatures, they need them. Some thrive in water hotter than 90 degrees Celsius, like the bubbling springs of Yellowstone. While we'd cook an egg or sterilize a lab at those temperatures, thermophiles are partying. Their proteins and cell structures are uniquely built not to break down under heat. And their usefulness isn't just theoretical. Thermophiles have shaped biotechnology in major ways. Take, for example, a heat-loving bacterium called Thermus aquaticus. From it, we get an enzyme known as Taq polymerase. If you've ever heard of PCR polymerase chain reaction, it's a key technique in amplifying DNA, used everywhere from research labs to crime scenes. Without this one heteroresistant microbe, modern genetics would be much harder and much slower. Then there are the halophiles, the salt lovers. Not just a little salty, but full and hypersaline environments like salt flats or salt mines, places where most life would shrivel up like over-dried fruit. Halophiles don't just survive, they thrive. They've developed cellular machinery perfectly calibrated to function in salty environments. With special proteins and pumps, they maintain the right balance of water and salt. Like internal desalination plants, some halophiles produce stunning pigments, bright pinks and reds, that paint entire salt ponds. These aren't just for flair. The pigments protect the cells from intense sunlight and UV radiation, turning survival into a splash of color. It's as if the microbes are painting the desert in self-defense. Let's swing to the opposite end of the spectrum, acidophiles. These organisms live in places with acidity levels comparable to battery acid. We're talking pH levels of 0. You'll find them in sulfuric hot springs or the acidic runoff of mining sites. Their cell membranes and biochemical processes are tough enough to stay stable in what amounts to a chemical war zone. And on the flip side, we have alkaliphiles. These flourish in high pH environments like soda lakes, where acidity is virtually non-existent. Most proteins would fall apart in that basic environment, but alkaliphiles flip the script and operate where few others can. Taken together, extremophiles have completely rewritten our understanding of where life can exist. For centuries, we believed life needed a narrow Goldilocks zone: mild temperature, neutral pH, liquid water. But extremophiles prove life is far more adaptable than we ever imagined. This has huge implications, especially for space exploration. Astrobiologists look to when imagining life on other planets. If bacteria can thrive in Antarctica's frozen subglacial lakes, or survive inside rocks in Chile's Atacama Desert, could something survive on Mars, or beneath the icy crust of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons? Extremophiles show us that life isn't fragile, it's inventive, resilient, creative, and it doesn't just endure. Many of these organisms are thriving. Some don't even use oxygen and sugar like we do. Instead, they metabolize sulfur, iron, or hydrogen gas. In the harshest conditions imaginable, they find new ways to turn the world around them into energy, and many of them ancient. Extremophiles may resemble the very first life forms to ever appear on Earth, billions of years ago, when our planet was volcanic and chaotic. These organisms were already getting cozy in the heat and acid. So the next time you complain about a hot shower or a humid day, remember some tiny creature out there is loving it, thriving in boiling water, basking in acid, soaking up radiation. Life doesn't just survive, it adapts, often in the weirdest, most wonderful ways. Imagine being so dedicated to self-defense that you'd literally break your own bones to protect yourself. That's not a metaphor, it's biology. And it's the strategy of one of the most dramatic creatures in the rainforest, the hairy frog. Its scientific name is Trichobatrachus robustus, and if the name sounds like it came straight out of a fantasy novel, well, its behavior fits right in. Native to the dense rainforests of Central Africa, this frog is part amphibian, part gladiator. Its survival tactics are bold, painful, and strangely poetic. Let's begin with the headline. When threatened, the male hairy frog will snap the bones in its toes, on purpose, to create claws that pierce through its own skin. Yes, bone, not keratin. Claws like you'd find in cats or badgers. We're talking about literal fragments of skeleton being forced outward as a defense weapon. Scientists aren't entirely sure how this mechanism works, but here's the leading theory. Inside each toe, a small bit of bone becomes disconnected from the rest, and muscles contract to push it through the skin. The result is a short, sharp claw that can be used to slash at predators or perhaps to settle scores with rival frogs. There's no known retraction system. Once the claw is out, it stays out until the tissue heals. Imagine Wolverine if he had no retract button. It's not exactly efficient. It's painful. It's damaging. But in the dense undergrowth, where camouflage often fails and size offers little safety, this kind of desperate self-weaponization might be just what's needed to survive. But wait, the hairy frog doesn't stop at skeletal theatrics. It lives up to its name in another surprising way. During the breeding season, the male frog sprouts what looks like hair along its body and thighs. It's not hair in the mammalian sense, though. These are dermal, papillae, tiny, hair-like projections, made of skin and blood vessels. Why grow faux fur? It's all about oxygen. These fine structures dramatically increase the frog's surface area, allowing it to absorb more oxygen through its skin. That's important because male hairy frogs spend a lot of time underwater guarding eggs. With this temporary scuba gear, they can stay submerged longer without needing to surface for air, in a way. These frogs are multitasking wonders, part bodyguard, part dad, part emergency room patient. Male hairy frogs are fiercely territorial. They guard egg-laying spots with passion, and they've been observed aggressively defending these territories from intruders. Their bone claws. Suddenly, they make a lot more sense. He's not just a protective father, he's armed. This level of commitment, growing oxygen-absorbing skin and snapping your own bones to wield weapons, sets the hairy frog apart in the amphibian world. Most frogs rely on toxins or camouflage. The hairy frog's method is tactile, physical, and undeniably dramatic. Evolution, it seems, has a flair for the theatrical. But these adaptations come with trade-offs. The claws are not sustainable. Long-term, healing takes time, and scientists are still studying how often the claws are used, whether the bones fully regenerate, and how the frog's tissues recover after such brutal defense tactics. There's even speculation that this type of claw adaptation may have evolved independently in other frog species. But so far, the hairy frog is the most extreme, the most cinematic, and the most studied of the bunch. And while much of the focus is on the claws, the frog's habitat plays a big role too. The rainforests it inhabits are dense, wet, and filled with both competition and predators. This high-pressure environment might be exactly what pushed the frog's evolution toward such a unique survival strategy, when camouflage isn't enough and calling for help is useless. Sometimes the only thing left to do is weaponize your own bones. As bizarre as this sounds, the hairy frog story fits into a much larger theme: nature's willingness to experiment, whether it's growing new structures to breathe or weaponizing its skeleton. This species shows us that there's no one correct way to survive. There are just methods that work well enough to keep the species going, and sometimes good enough is the most elegant answer of all. Now, from the forests to the ocean's shadowy depths, let's explore another theater of the strange, the deep sea. a place where sunlight never reaches, the pressure is crushing, and temperatures hover just above freezing. And yet, down in this alien world, life not only survives, it gets creative. Let's start with a legend of the deep, the anglerfish. You've probably seen images of the female anglerfish nightmarish jaws, needle teeth, and a glowing lure that dangles from its forehead. That glowing tip, it's a modified dorsal spine called an elysium, ending in a bulb known as the esker. Inside that bulb live colonies of bioluminescent bacteria, creating an eerie light in the eternal darkness. And it's not just for atmosphere. That glow is a trap. In the black void of the deep sea, light is rare and therefore irresistible. Curious prey swim toward it, only to be devoured by the anglerfish's enormous mouth and elastic stomach. This fish can swallow prey almost as large as itself, thanks to its stretchy anatomy. Now, the plot thickens. In many species of anglerfish, the males are tiny, barely recognizable beside the monstrous females. And their life purpose? Find a female and never let go. Literally. When a male finds a female, he bites into her body, releases enzymes that dissolve their tissues, and fuses himself to her. Over time, their circulatory systems connect, and he becomes a permanent appendage. Essentially just a pair of testes supplying sperm whenever she's ready to spawn. It's bizarre. It's gruesome. And in the context of deep-sea life, it's brilliant. Food is scarce, mates are rarer. So when you find one, you make it permanent. Moving through the darkness, we find another oddball, the gulper eel, also known as the pelican. Eel. Imagine a fish whose head and jaw make up a third of its entire body, and whose mouth can open wide enough to engulf prey larger than itself. It looks permanently shocked, like it just heard some very bad news. Despite its intimidating look, the gulper eel isn't particularly dangerous to humans. It uses its vast mouth like a scoop, sweeping up shrimp, squid, and whatever else it can catch. Its tail ends in a glowing tip, which may be used to lure prey. Like the anglerfish, it's all about attraction in the darkness. And then there's the blobfish, perhaps the most misunderstood creature in the deep. You've probably seen those viral photos. A pale, droopy creature that looks like it's melting. But here's the truth, those pictures are misleading. Blobfish live 800 to 1,000 meters below the surface, where the pressure is immense. Down there, their gelatinous bodies are perfectly adapted to float just above the seafloor without expending energy. They don't chase prey or swim much. They simply drift and eat whatever edible matter comes their way. The melted wax look happens when they're brought to the surface, where the lack of pressure causes their bodies to lose shape. Down in their proper environment, blobfish are, well, maybe not elegant, but effective. In the deep sea, energy conservation is key. Speed and muscle are expensive. Soft and slow is the smarter strategy. And speaking of soft, many deep-sea creatures have evolved without bones or air-filled organs, which would collapse under pressure. Instead, they're squishy and compressible. No swim bladders, no lungs, just flesh adapted to crush depth. It's a silent world, full of light tricks and sensory adaptations. Some creatures are jet black, absorbing nearly all light. Others are red, which because red light doesn't penetrate far underwater makes them invisible. Some use counter-illumination, glowing on their undersides to erase their shadows when viewed from below. The result, a world of quiet illusions, glowing lures, oversized mouths, and strange shapes, all tuned for one thing: survival in the abyss. let's drift even deeper into the silent world of the ocean, where life doesn't just survive, it astonishes. And nowhere is that more true than in the delicate, crystalline form of one of the most beautiful creatures you'll never see in person. The Venus flower basket. Despite its ethereal name, this isn't a flower or a basket. It's a sponge, a glass sponge, to be exact, found anchored to the seafloor in the deep Pacific. Its scientific name is Euplatella aspergillum, and its body is a fragile-looking lattice made entirely of silicate, same material used in window glass, yet somehow it withstands the immense pressure of the deep ocean while remaining so finely structured that it looks like spun sugar at first glance. The Venus flower basket resembles a tall, narrow vase with intricate mesh walls. But this isn't sculpture. It's a living filter. The sponge doesn't move. It doesn't hunt. It simply sits in the cold, dark stillness, letting the water bring food to it. Tiny particles, mostly plankton and organic detritusea, pulled into its body and trapped by the fine lattice of its silica structure. But this sponge isn't just a passive feeder. It's an engineer. The structure of its silica skeleton has captured the attention of architects and materials scientists for years. Why? Because it's strong, shockingly strong for something so delicate. The lattice pattern distributes stress evenly, preventing cracks from spreading and allowing the sponge to remain intact, even under deep-sea pressure. Some researchers believe this natural design could inspire better buildings, bridges, and even spacecraft materials. There's more. Those glassy speculist, tiny, needle-like rods that make up the sponge's frame can transmit light. Yes, they act like natural fiber optic cables. When light from bioluminescent organisms or distant glimmers in the water hit the sponge, some of that light travels through the spicules, bouncing along their length, much like in a fiber optic line. In fact, the sponge's natural glass can sometimes transmit light more efficiently than commercial fiber optics. As for why a deep-sea sponge might need to transmit light well, that's still up for debate. Some scientists suspect the light may help attract symbiotic organisms, like small shrimp, that live inside the sponge's hollow center. Others think it could play a role in communication or reproduction. Whatever the purpose, the effect is mesmerizing. A living chandelier at the bottom of the sea. Speaking of shrimp, there's a strange and rather romantic tradition associated with the Venus flower basket. In some cases, a bonded pair of shrimp enter the sponge's body when they're young and small. As they grow, they become too large to escape through the sponge's latticework and are effectively sealed inside for life. The sponge provides protection and a steady flow of food particles, and the shrimp clean the sponge from the inside. It's a mutually beneficial arrangement, and in parts of Japan, dried specimens of the sponge-containing shrimp pairs are given as wedding gifts, symbolizing eternal love and commitment. Romantic, maybe claustrophobic, probably, but beautiful in its own quiet way. Despite its motionless existence, the Venus flower basket plays a vital role in the deep-sea ecosystem. By filtering vast volumes of water, it helps maintain water quality and nutrient cycling. It also offers habitat for small organisms, becoming a sort of apartment complex in the undersea sprawl. And unlike many ocean creatures, it doesn't hunt or scavenge. It simply waits, patient, still, and incredibly effective. Some species of glass sponges are thought to live for centuries. A few may even be over 10,000 years old. Imagine that a single organism sitting quietly in the same spot, filtering the same cold water, through the rise and fall of empires, through the entire span of human history. But there's a downside to such stillness. These sponges are fragile. Deep-sea trawling, sediment disruption, and changes in ocean chemistry can destroy them instantly. They don't regenerate easily. Once broken, their complex glass structures may never recover. That's why marine scientists have begun advocating for the protection of sponge grounds, densely packed areas of glass sponges that serve as biodiversity hotspots in the deep. There's something oddly comforting about their way of life. They don't chase, compete, or flee. They just exist, quiet, glowing, sturdy, and serene, in a world that often feels like it celebrates only speed and aggression. The Venus flower basket offers a counterpoint, strength through stillness. It's a living sculpture, a reminder that beauty doesn't have to be loud, and function doesn't have to be fast. That even in the coldest, darkest parts of the world, life can build something extraordinary. But if you're looking for life with a flair for the dramatic, let me introduce you to the sea cucumber. At first glance, the sea cucumber doesn't seem like much. They're soft, sausage-shaped creatures, distant relatives of sea stars and sea urchins. They live on the ocean floor sometimes, shallow coral reefs, sometimes the deepest trenches, and spend their days sifting through sand and debris. But when danger comes calling, the sea cucumber doesn't run. It ejects its own internal organs. Yes, you heard that right. If a predator, like a fish or crab, gets too close, the sea cucumber contracts its muscles and violently expels its intestines or respiratory organs through its mouth, or more commonly its rear end. In some species, it even ejects long sticky threads called Cuvierian tubules that entangle or distract predators. It's like pulling a fire alarm in your own body, and then calmly shuffling away while your attacker is left confused and disgusted. The expelled organs may be toxic or just thoroughly unpleasant. Either way, they buy the sea cucumber just enough time to escape, and the best part, it doesn't end there. Over the course of several days or weeks, the sea cucumber regenerates. Everything it lost, intestines, respiratory trees, specialized tubulously, all grow back. It's not a permanent sacrifice. It's a biological reset button. This incredible regenerative ability is one reason why scientists are studying sea cucumbers closely. If we can learn how they regenerate complex internal organs without scarring, it could offer insights into human medicine and tissue repair. But the strangeness doesn't stop there. Sea cucumbers breathe through their butts. Really, they use a pair of internal structures called respiratory trees, which are connected to a common cavity known as the cloaca, same exit used for waste. Water is drawn into this chamber and passed over the respiratory trees for gas exchange, then expelled. It's not the most glamorous method, but it works. Efficient, low maintenance, and very on-brand for sea cucumbers, and sometimes the cloaca becomes real estate. Some species of pearlfish have been found living inside sea cucumbers, literally swimming into the cloacal opening and taking up residence. It's like an involuntary Airbnb hosted by a slow-moving invertebrate. Despite their soft, sluggish existence, sea cucumbers are essential to the health of the ocean floor. They act as recyclers, ingesting sand and detritus, digesting the organic material, and excreting clean sediment. In many tropical areas, a good portion of the sand underfoot has passed through a sea cucumber at least once. So next time you find yourself walking barefoot along a sunny beach, just remember you might be stepping on sea cucumber poop. And that's okay. That's ecosystem magic in action. Let's stay with the sea cucumber a little longer, because this oddball still has more to offer. While it may seem soft and passive, it plays a big role in the silent maintenance of the ocean's health. In many ecosystems, its feeding method is the marine equivalent of vacuuming. The sea cucumber uses tube-like tentacles around its mouth to collect sand or organic particles drifting by. These tentacles are sticky and flexible, perfect for scooping up meals in slow motion. Once the tentacles are full, the cucumber pulls them into its mouth one at a time, cleaning off the collected material and then repeating the cycle. It's methodical, rhythmic, almost meditative, like a conveyor belt made of spaghetti. Sea cucumbers come in an impressive range of shapes and colors. Some are translucent, others adorned with bright reds or purples. Some species have spikes or thick, leathery skin. A few can even inflate themselves with water to appear larger and more threatening, like the ocean's version of a pufferfish. Others hide in crevices, burrow in sand, or wedge themselves into coral structures for safety. Despite all this evolutionary creativity, sea cucumbers are often overlooked, but not everywhere. In many Asian cultures, they're considered a delicacy prized not only for their texture, but also for their supposed medicinal properties. Known as bechdemer or hai shen, they're eaten, dried, stewed, or powdered, and believed to support joint health, libido, or immune function. Some extracts from sea cucumbers are even being studied for potential anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer effects. Though research is still early, this growing demand, however, has caused trouble. Overharvesting in some regions has led to declining wild populations, and unlike many fast-breeding fish, sea cucumbers reproduce slowly. They're sensitive to environmental changes, and damage to their habitats can take decades to reverse. So, protecting these squishy recyclers isn't just about preserving weirdness, it's about keeping ocean ecosystems healthy. Because when you think about it, the sea cucumber's whole biology challenges what we expect from survival. It doesn't fight, it doesn't run, and it certainly doesn't look like a predator or powerhouse, but it works, it thrives, it regenerates, it filters. And in the world of biology, that's more than enough now. Let's shift from soft-bodied slowpokes to one of the ocean's most clever performers, the mimic octopus. Imagine a creature that doesn't just blend in with its environment, it pretends to be someone else entirely. Found in the warm, silty waters of Southeast Asia, Thaumoctopus mimicus isn't your typical camouflage artist. While most octopuses are masters of disguise, capable of changing skin color, pattern, and texture in the blink of an eye, the mimic octopus goes one step further. It acts with just a bit of flair and some strategic limb placement. It can impersonate venomous sea snakes, spiny lionfish, or flatfish, and it does so convincingly enough to fool both predators and prey. One of its best-known disguises is the banded sea snake. When threatened by a predator, the octopus tucks 6 of its arms into a burrow, leaving 2 striped limbs extended and waving like the snake's long body. Sea snakes are dangerous, and many potential predators know better than to mess with them. So the illusion works. It can also puff out its arms and fan them in wide rippling motions to mimic the lionfish, another species known for its venomous spines. Or it flattens itself and glides across the seafloor, trailing all 8 limbs to imitate the movement of a flounder or flatfish. What's even more fascinating is that these impersonations aren't random. Observations suggest the mimic octopus chooses its disguise based on the type of threat nearby. If it's being approached by a creature known to avoid sea snakes, it plays snake. If it's facing a different predator, it switches tactics. This implies a level of decision-making that goes beyond instinct, a flexible, creative intelligence, and that tracks. Octopuses already have a reputation for being among the smartest invertebrates on the planet. They can solve puzzles, open jars, navigate mazes, and even recognize individual humans. Their nervous systems are radically different from ours, more decentralized, with most neurons located in their arms rather than their heads. Each arm can process sensory input and make decisions independently. It's less like one brain and more like a network of small thinking machines working in concert. So when the mimic octopus performs, it's not just copying appearances, it's studying movement, reading the situation, and making choices. It doesn't just look like a lionfish, it acts like one. And remember, it's doing all this with no bones. The octopus's body is just soft tissue, muscle, and skin. Its flexibility is nearly unmatched. It can ripple, flatten, puff up, or squeeze through a hole the size of a coin. And it changes color using specialized skin cells called chromatophores. These cells expand and contract like tiny balloons, revealing or hiding pigments in milliseconds. Combined with papillae muscular skin folds that adjust texture, this gives the octopus total control over its appearance. So why go through all this effort? For survival, of course. The shallow coastal habitats where mimic octopuses live are busy. Places, predators abound. Speed isn't always an option, and ink clouds only buy so much time. But deception buys everything. And in an environment full of risk, pretending to be something scarier than you are can be the difference between life and lunch. But mimicry may also help the octopus on offense. Some researchers believe it uses its disguises not just to avoid being eaten, but to approach prey unnoticed. If a crustacean mistakes it for a harmless flounder or even another kind of predator, it might let its guard down for just a moment. And that's all the octopus needs. What sets the mimic octopus apart is its versatility. Most animals that mimic others stick to one disguise. A harmless snake may resemble a venomous one, or a moth might copy the colors of a toxic butterfly. But the mimic octopus has a full costume trunk. It doesn't just mimic, it selects, adapts, and improvises, and we likely haven't seen its full performance since it was only discovered in the late 1990s. Scientists are still learning what this elusive creature can do. Divers have reported sightings of mimic octopuses impersonating jellyfish, crabs, and even stingrays. Not all of these claims are verified, but with an actor this convincing, it's hard to be sure. In a way, the mimic octopus challenges our assumptions about personality in animals. It's not just a blob reacting to danger. It's an explorer, a problem solver, a quick change artist using behavior as its best defense. It doesn't rely on brute force or toxins. Its strength is in creativity. So the next time you think about what it means to survive in the wild, consider this soft-bodied performer gliding across the ocean floor, shape-shifting its way through life. It doesn't roar, it doesn't charge. It just becomes whatever it needs to be. And sometimes, that's the smartest move of all. If evolution had a costume designer, the leafy sea dragon would be its showpiece. Floating through the coastal waters of southern Australia, this creature doesn't look like an animal at all. It looks like a loose scrap of seaweed, graceful, leafy, and impossibly delicate. But behind that botanical disguise is a master of underwater camouflage, a cousin of the seahorse, and one of the most enchanting fish in the ocean. The leafy sea dragon belongs to the same family as seahorses and pipefish, but it's far more flamboyant. It's covered in ornate, leaf-like appendages that trail from its body like fronds of kelp. These leaves aren't used for swimming. They're purely for show, a carefully crafted illusion. When the sea dragon moves, it sways gently with the current, mimicking the flow of seaweed. Even predators with sharp eyes struggle to detect it. Its actual movement is powered by nearly invisible fins along its back and sides. These fins ripple with such subtlety that they're almost impossible to see, even when the fish is swimming right in front of you. Combine that with the dragon's ability to perfectly mimic the pulse of the ocean around it, and you've got a creature that disappears in plain sight. This is passive defense at its finest. The leafy sea dragon doesn't dart or flee. It doesn't have venom, speed, or armor. Instead, it relies entirely on not being noticed in the first place. In the calm, weedy waters, it calls home. Looking like seaweed isn't a quirk, a necessity. And just when you think it couldn't get any more charming, guess what? It's the dads who do the heavy lifting. Like seahorses, male sea dragons carry the fertilized eggs. The female transfers the eggs onto a special brood patch on the male's tail. He then carries them for several weeks, protecting and oxygenating them until they hatch. The babies emerge fully formed and float off into the kelp, miniature versions of their ethereal parents. From leafy camouflage to parental care, the sea dragon is a quiet marvel of adaptation. But now, let's head to the shoreline where another fish has taken a very different evolutionary path. Meet the mudskipper. Mudskippers are fish, but someone forgot to tell them that fish are supposed to stay in the water, found in the muddy coastal zones and mangrove swamps of Africa and Asia. Mudskippers are amphibious oddities that hop, squirm, and wriggle across land like little fishy sausages with attitude. They don't walk in the traditional sense. Instead, they use their strong, muscular pectoral fins to haul themselves forward in a series of ungainly hops and scoots. It's not elegant, but it's effective, and it allows them to explore mudflats, chase insects, defend territory, and even court mates on dry land. To make this possible, mudskippers have developed a whole bag of tricks. For one, they can breathe through their skin and the lining of their mouth and throat, much like amphibians. But their skin has to stay moist for this to work, so they're never far from damp mud or a shallow pool. They also keep air bubbles stored in their gill chambers, allowing their gills to function while out of water. In short, they carry a little bit of the ocean with them, like scuba divers with built-in gear. Their land excursions come with rewards. While other fish are stuck underwater, mudskippers feast on insects, crabs, and plant matter scattered across the surface. They avoid aquatic predators by simply leaving the water behind. If something scary swims toward you, just hop onto land. Problem solved, but mudskippers don't just crawl. They perform. During mating season, males build towering mud mounds, yes, actual mud towers meant to impress potential mates. These little monuments can be several times taller than the mudskipper's body. Once a tower is built, the male performs a series of dramatic head bobs and dances, trying to catch the eye of a female. If she's interested, she'll follow him into a tunnel beneath the tower where spawning occurs. It's part dating show, part mud architecture, and completely charming. In their own awkward way, mudskippers represent another edge of evolution. Where the sea dragon has perfected invisibility, the mudskipper thrives on versatility. One glides, the other climbs, one hides, the other builds. Both have adapted to niches most fish wouldn't dare explore. These adaptations are wildly different, yet equally effective, and they reveal something powerful about evolution. It's not about perfection. It's about fit. Finding a space in the environment where you can survive, reproduce, and do your weird little thing, whatever that may be. The leafy sea dragon is a ghost in the seaweed, barely noticeable but always present. The mud skipper is a muddy acrobat, boldly flopping into new territory and daring evolution to keep up. One turns stillness into camouflage. The other turns movement into opportunity. Both are brilliant in their own way, and both are a reminder that when it comes to surviving in the natural world, creativity often beats conformity. Now, let's step into the world of plants, where things might seem peaceful and slow, until you meet the parasitic ones. Plants, for the most part, have a calm reputation. They sit still, soak up sun, and make their own food. They don't chase, bite, or sting. But some plants have decided to ditch that peaceful path. They've chosen instead to become thieves. One of the most unsettling examples is the dodder vine. At first glance, dodder looks like a harmless yellow or orange thread draped over a plant, like decorative spaghetti. But don't let the looks fool you. Dodder is a parasite. It lacks chlorophyll, so it can't photosynthesize. It doesn't make its own food. Instead, it wraps itself around a host plant, drills into its tissues with specialized structures called hostoria, and begins siphoning off nutrients and water. It's not just a thief, it's a hijacker. Once it's latched on, dodder can form multiple connections across the host, creating a web of nutrient highways. Over time, the host plant weakens. It may grow more slowly, lose color, or even die. But how does dodder choose its victims? Here's the creepy part. When a dodder seed germinates, it doesn't immediately root. Instead, it waves through the air, sniffing for chemical cues. It can detect volatile organic compounds, tiny chemical signals released by nearby plants. In experiments, dodder has even shown preference, growing faster toward its favorite species. Once it finds a target, it twines around the stem and hooks in. If it doesn't find a host within a few days, it dies. No second chances. But if it succeeds, it becomes a biological leech, silent, persistent, and deeply invasive. And it gets even stranger. Dodder can also transfer information between plants. If it attaches to two separate hosts, it can act as a bridge, moving, signaling molecules and even genetic material from one plant to another. In a way, it becomes a twisted kind of plant internet connecting, stealing, eavesdropping, and rerouting. Some scientists have even found that dodder alters gene expression in its host. It doesn't just feed, it manipulates, like a botanical puppet master. Not bad for something that looks like decorative twine. So, we've met a parasitic vine that behaves like a hacker, and now it's time to meet its even weirder cousin, Rafflesia arnoldii, often called the corpse flower. Despite its nickname, this isn't the same plant as the massive Titanum, which also gets called the corpse flower for similar reasons. No, Rafflesia is its own flavor of strange, and it holds an impressive record. It produces the largest individual flower in the world. Some Rafflesia blooms can reach over a meter across, weighing up to 10 kilograms. But this enormous flower doesn't have leaves. It doesn't have stems, no roots either. In fact, most of its life is completely invisible. That's because lives almost entirely inside its host, a vine from the grape family. It spends months, sometimes years, as a network of tiny threads embedded in the host's tissues. It has no chlorophyll, so it steals all of its nutrients, sugars, and water. To the naked eye, it's as if nothing's there, no signs, no leaves, waving in the breeze. And then, one day, seemingly from nowhere, a bud begins to form on the host stem. It grows steadily, swelling and darkening, until it bursts open into one of the most striking and pungent blooms in the plant kingdom. The petals are thick, leathery, and speckled with white blotches. The center looks like a giant, fleshy bowl, and the smell, unforgettable. Rafflesia emits a powerful stench of rotting meat. It's so strong that people have compared it to decomposing flesh baking in the sun. But the smell isn't just for horror. It serves a purpose. The scent attracts carrion flies, those insects that typically lay their eggs in dead animals, tricked into thinking they've found a decaying carcass. The flies land on the flower, crawl through it, and unknowingly pick up pollen the flies leave. Disappointed, but the flower gets exactly what it needs: pollination. Unlike most flowering plants, Rafflesia doesn't use color or nectar to lure pollinators. It relies on deception, the scent, the heat it gives off. Even the texture of the petals, all of it, is a carefully evolved illusion of death. It's not pretty, but it works. And despite its size, these flowers are delicate. They only last for a few days before collapsing into mush. Some are eaten by animals, others rot in place. And because Rafflesia lives so much of its life hidden inside another plant, and its reproduction is still not fully understood, it's incredibly difficult to cultivate or protect. In fact, it's one of the rarest flowers on Earth, found only in specific rainforests of Southeast Asia, mostly in Indonesia, Malaysia, and the Philippines. Rafflesia is now threatened by habitat loss and climate change. Its mystery, size, and bizarre beauty make it a symbol of ecological uniqueness, but also vulnerability. And speaking of vulnerable, let's turn now to the resurrection plant. In the deserts of North America and Africa, where rain can vanish for months or even years, survival requires something radical. And that's where these plants shine. They're known scientifically as Selaginella lepidophylla, or sometimes just Rose of Jericho. At first glance, a resurrection plant looks like a dead tumbleweed, brown, brittle, curled into a tight ball. But it's not dead. It's dormant, waiting when rain finally arrives. This ball of twigs begins to uncurl, slowly opening like a time-lapse flower. Within hours, the plant spreads its fronds, turning green again and beginning photosynthesis. It rehydrates, breathes, and lives often after months or years of complete desiccation. Once the moisture is gone, the plant dries out and curls up again, returning to its death-like state. It can repeat this process dozens of times. Wet, revive, dry, wait. This ability isn't just a neat trick, it's a full-blown survival strategy. In a place where water is the ultimate currency, resurrection plants trade activity for longevity. They go dormant to avoid death, pressing pause on life until the environment improves. What makes it possible? Special proteins and sugars that protect the plant's cells from damage during drying. While most living tissues would tear apart or collapse without water, these plants preserve their structure, almost like freeze-drying without the freezing. Scientists are fascinated by this, not just because it's cool, but because the same biological tricks might be useful for preserving human tissues, vaccines, or even food in dry environments. Nature, once again, offering inspiration through struggle. And it's not just plants that can pause life. There's a creature we met earlier that also enters suspended animation, the tardigrade. And there are others, brine shrimp, nematode, even some frogs that slow their metabolism to nearly zero during harsh conditions. Life's toolkit is full of clever ways to cheat death. But back to plants. If the resurrection plant is a symbol of patient endurance, then our next botanical marvel is a symbol of movement. Yes, movement, because not all plants sit still. Let's talk about the sensitive plant, also known as mimosa, Pudica. At first glance, Mimosa pudica looks like any other fern-like plant. Delicate compound leaves, soft green color, low-growing. But touch it just the lightest brush, and the leaflets fold inward instantly. Entire branches droop. The whole plant seems to recoil from your hand, like a shy animal. It's not magic, it's mechanics. Inside the plant's leaf stalks are specialized cells that regulate pressure through changes in water content. When stimulated by touch, vibration, or even heat, these cells rapidly lose water, collapsing the support structure and causing the leaflets to fold. This reaction happens in under a second, and once the threat passes, the water pressure returns, and the leaves reopen. Why bother? It's likely a defense mechanism. By folding quickly, the plant might startle herbivores or appear less appetizing. Insects or grazing animals may back off, mistaking the sudden motion for something more dangerous, or just losing interest in a moving meal. And Mimosa pudica is also sensitive to light, temperature, and even time. At night, it folds its leaves to sleep. In the morning, it wakes again. This rhythmic leaf movement is part of a broader phenomenon in plants called nyctinacity, and it's surprisingly widespread. But Mimosa pudica is still one of the fastest responders in the plant world. Its name pudica comes from the Latin for shy or bashful, a poetic name for a plant that flinches at the touch of a finger. People have been fascinated by this plant for centuries. In the 1700s, European naturalists were amazed by its rapid motion, which seemed to defy their understanding of what plants could do. They thought of plants as passive, almost inanimate. But here was a green thing that moved voluntarily and visibly. In modern times, Mimosa pudica has found new roles. It's studied in classrooms to teach plant behavior. It's tested in laboratories to explore memory and stimulus response. Some researchers have even suggested it shows signs of learning, adjusting its sensitivity over time, depending on repeated exposure. That's still a controversial idea, but it raises interesting questions. Where do we draw the line between reaction and awareness? What kind of intelligence might be embedded in nature's quietest forms? From parasitic vines to sensitive leaves, from undead flowers to desert miracles. Plants prove again and again that they're far more dynamic than we give them credit for. They listen, they adapt, and sometimes they move. If plants could move and adapt in ways we never imagined, what about fungi? Ah, yes, the fungi. Neither plant nor animal, they exist in their own kingdom. And while mushrooms might seem like quaint forest decorations, the truth is far stranger and more sprawling. Beneath your feet, stretching across soil and forest floor, lives one of the largest and oldest organisms on Earth. Not a tree, not a whale, but a fungus. Armillaria ostoi, also known as the honey fungus. The fruiting bodies, the mushrooms you see, are just tiny tips poking above ground. The true organism lies below, in a web of white, thread-like structures called mycelium. These threads spread out underground, connecting with roots, absorbing nutrients, even infecting trees. In Oregon's Blue Mountains, a single Armillaria network spans more than 2,000 acres and may be over 2,000 years old. It's sometimes called the humongous fungus. and is considered the world's largest living organism by area. This fungal network isn't just passive. It actively hunts and consumes plant material. It kills trees, then slowly breaks down their tissues over years. It's patient, persistent, and nearly invisible. But not all fungi are destructive. Many form mutualistic relationships with plants, like mycorrhizal fungi, which connect to tree roots and exchange nutrients. The fungus receives sugars from the plant, and in return, it delivers water and minerals from the soil. It's an ancient partnership that dates back hundreds of millions of years. And here's the mind-bending part. Some scientists believe these underground fungal networks can transfer signals between trees. If one tree is under attack from insects, say, it may release chemical signals through its roots, which travel via fungal threads to alert neighboring trees. The trees, in turn, ramp up their defenses. It's been poetically called the Wood Wide Web, a hidden communication network, pulsing beneath the forest floor. This raises profound questions. Could trees actually warn each other, share nutrients, form alliances? If so, the forest becomes not just a collection of individuals, but a community connected by silent, living wires of fungus. And if that weren't strange enough, there's a fungus that turns insects into zombies. Meet Ophiocordicips unilateralis, a parasitic fungus that specializes in ants. It starts when a microscopic spore lands on an ant's body and penetrates its exoskeleton. From there, the fungus begins to grow inside the ant, slowly taking over its muscles and nervous system. As the infection spreads, the ant's behavior changes. It leaves its colony. It climbs a plant, and when it reaches just the right height, usually on the underside of a leaf, it bites down and clamps on with unnatural force. Then it dies. The fungus continues to grow inside the ant's corpse, eventually sending a stalk through the back of the head. From this stalk, spores rain down onto the forest floor, ready to infect more ants. It's a precise, controlled takeover. Scientists have even found that the fungus doesn't invade the ant's brain, it leaves that intact, suggesting it hijacks the ant's body like a puppet, not a processor. It's nature's version of a horror movie, but one that plays out silently, endlessly, in the jungles of South America and Asia. And cordyceps isn't alone. There are dozens of related fungi that target different insects, spiders, caterpillars, beetles, each one adapted to a specific host, each one with its own method of mind control. Some fungi even glow, attracting animals to spread their spores farther. Fungi, in all their forms, blur the line between life and death, between decay and control. They are recyclers, yes, but also colonizers, manipulators, and network architects. They don't just break things down. They shape ecosystems. And while we tend to think of mushrooms as small and simple, many are complex and bizarre in their own right. Take the bleeding tooth fungus, Hydnellum. It looks like a pale, cream-colored mushroom that's oozing bright red liquid. It truly appears to be bleeding. The liquid is actually a pigment-rich sap, pushed through the mushroom's pores when conditions are damp. Scientists are still studying its chemical makeup, but it may have antibacterial or antioxidant properties. Or consider the bioluminescent mushrooms, like Mycena. These glow faintly green at night, lighting up forest floors in Asia and Brazil. The glow is thought to attract insects, which then spread the spores. It's nature's original nightlight, gentle, eerie, and beautiful. Some mushrooms grow in perfect circles, known as fairy rings. In folklore, they were believed to be places where fairies danced, or gateways to other worlds. the truth is still magical. The mycelium expands outward in all directions, fruiting at the edges. Over time, this creates a ring of mushrooms that moves slowly across the landscape, year by year. And then there are mushrooms that defy categorization, like Lactorius indigo, which bleeds blue milk when cut, or Clathrus arcari, the devil's fingers, which emerges from an egg-like sac and unfolds into red, finger-like arms covered in black slime. It smells like rotting meat and looks like it belongs on an alien planet. The diversity is staggering, and we've barely scratched the surface. For decades, fungi were understudied and overlooked in biology. But today, scientists are recognizing their power, not just ecologically, but medically. Penicillin, one of the first antibiotics, comes from a mold. Other fungi produce powerful compounds used in cholesterol drugs, cancer therapies, and even antidepressants. There's growing interest in psilocybin, the active compound in magic. Mushrooms, for its potential in treating depression, PTSD, and anxiety. What was once taboo is now becoming cutting-edge research, and in biotechnology, mycelium is being explored as a sustainable material for everything from packaging to clothing to building bricks. It's renewable, biodegradable, and astonishingly strong. From mind control to medicine, from silent networks to alien shapes, fungi are rewriting what we think life can be. They're not just decomposers, they're creators, engineers, illusionists. They've lived on this planet for over 1 billion years, long before trees, long before animals, and they'll likely outlast us all. So next time you see a humble mushroom pushing through the forest floor, pause for a moment. Beneath it may be miles of invisible life, communication lines, old intelligence, and maybe, just maybe, a deeper kind of consciousness, one that doesn't speak, but still listens. Let's now travel from the fungal forest floor to a creature so strange, it doesn't seem real. A creature so transparent you can see its organs, and so alien it has no blood, no brain, and no heart. This, dear listener, is the jellyfish. Jellyfish have been drifting through Earth's oceans for more than 500 million years, twice as long as dinosaurs. And in all that time, they've barely changed. They are soft, simple, elegant, and occasionally terrifying. These gelatinous drifters come in all sizes, from thumbnail-sized to several meters across. Some even have tentacles trailing as long as a blue whale. But here's where things get really weird. Jellyfish aren't fish at all. They belong to a group called cnidarians, which includes sea anemones and corals. What sets jellyfish apart is their ability to pulsate through water using a bell-shaped body and their arsenal of stinging cells, known as cnidocytes. These cells are weapons, tiny capsules containing coiled harpoons and venom. When triggered by touch, pressure, or even a chemical signal, they explode outward, penetrating the skin of whatever brushed against them. It's like being stabbed by a microscopic poison dart. Different species deliver different kinds of stings. Some are harmless to humans. Others, like the box jellyfish, are lethally dangerous. Found in the Indo-Pacific, box jellies possess some of the fastest acting venom in the animal kingdom. A single encounter can lead to cardiac arrest in minutes. And yet, despite the danger, jellyfish don't mean to hurt anyone. They don't have eyes in the way we do, though some species, surprisingly, do possess light-sensitive organs. They don't hunt with malice or strategy. They drift, passively stinging whatever happens to bump into them. Jellyfish are powered by water and muscle. They contract their bell to push themselves forward, then relax to refill. This pulsing rhythm is hypnotic, graceful, almost meditative. They eat small fish, plankton, and organic matter, using trailing tentacles to guide food toward their mouth, which is also their exit for waste. Simplicity, again, becomes elegance. But what really sets the jellyfish apart? Some species may be biologically immortal. Yes, you heard that right. Meet Torritopsis dorni, sometimes nicknamed the immortal jellyfish. When faced with starvation, injury, or environmental stress, this tiny creature doesn't die. Instead, it reverses its development. Its adult cells transform back into a polyp stage, like a baby jellyfish. From there, it begins its life cycle all over again, like a biological time machine. This cellular backtracking, called transdifferentiation, is rare in nature. It essentially means the jellyfish can reset itself indefinitely. And while in the wild, they still face threats from predators and disease. Their ability to avoid death from old age is nothing short of extraordinary. Scientists are studying Torritopsis closely. Could its regenerative biology offer clues about aging in humans? Could we one day harness similar pathways to repair tissues or even slow the aging process? Maybe the answers remain slippery, elusive, just like the jellyfish itself. And speaking of slipperiness, let's meet another master of mystery, the glass octopus. This deep-sea phantom, Vitreladonella richardi, is so transparent that only its eyes, optic nerves, and a few organs are visible. The rest is nearly invisible, perfectly adapted to the open ocean's twilight zone. Here, there's just enough light to cast a shadow, but not enough to hide. So, instead of blending in with background colors, the glass octopus erases itself. It's a strategy used by many pelagic creatures, those that float in open water. Instead of being dark or patterned, they go clear. Light passes through them rather than reflecting off, making them nearly invisible to predators below, above, and all around. But visibility isn't the only problem. In the deep sea, finding a mate is just as difficult as avoiding being eaten. Little is known about the reproductive habits of the glass octopus, but it's likely that, like other deep-sea cephalopods, it reproduces only once, laying a single batch of eggs, then dying. Many octopuses have surprisingly tender parenting behaviors. Some females guard their eggs for months, even years, without eating, slowly wasting away until the young hatch. It's one of the most haunting sacrifices in nature, giving your life to ensure the next generation survives. And while the glass octopus is elusive, its story is part of a much broader truth. The ocean is full of see-through life, from salps to comb jellies to larval fish. Transparency is one of the ocean's most common and effective forms of camouflage. Even some shrimp and squid have evolved to be nearly invisible, with mirrored surfaces or transparent tissues, in an environment where shadows mean death. Disappearing is survival. But let's return to land for a moment and meet a creature that does the exact opposite, the peacock spider. If jellyfish are about drifting invisibly, the peacock spider is about strutting and dazzling. Native to Australia and no bigger than a grain of rice. Male peacock spiders belong to the genus Mara. They're best known for their elaborate courtship dances, tiny, choreographed performances complete with leg waves, body shimmies, and vibrant, iridescent displays. The male raises a colorful flap from his abdomen, like opening a fan, revealing dazzling patterns in blue, red, and yellow. He then begins a dance, a series of rhythmic hops and vibrations intended to catch the eye of a female. If she's impressed, mating ensues. If not, well, sometimes she eats him, so the stakes are high. These spiders use vibrations as well as visuals. Their dances generate subtle tremors through the ground, which females detect through their legs. It's a multisensory performance. Part music, part ballet, all instinct. What's remarkable is that each species of Maratus has its own unique dance and pattern. Some spin in circles, others wave their legs in staccato beats. Some species are still being discovered, and new behaviors are described almost every year. Why go through all this effort? Because for many animals, especially small ones, reproduction is risky. So courtship becomes both a seduction and a negotiation. The male is saying, "I'm fit, I'm healthy, I've got moves, don't eat me," and the female, she watches, judging, deciding, choosing. The world of courtship is often stranger than fiction, and not just for spiders. Birds of paradise, seahorses, frogs, even crabs. Many species have developed elaborate displays to attract mates. Whether it's bright colors, dancing, songs, or even gifts, the animal kingdom is full of rituals designed to show off genetic fitness through performance. In that way, the peacock spider isn't just dancing, it's writing a resume, one that's reviewed in real time with life or death consequences. And yet, there's something deeply endearing about this tiny creature's confidence. Barely the size of a sesame seed, and still, he dances like the fate of the world depends on it, because to him, it does. And maybe that's the quiet lesson from nature's performers. From spiders to jellyfish, survival often requires showmanship. And sometimes, the best strategy isn't to hide or fight, but to captivate. Captivation, as it turns out, isn't limited to dance or color. Sometimes, it's about sound, especially if you're a lyrebird, native to Australia. The male lyrebird is one of the greatest vocal impressionists in the animal kingdom. His song isn't just beautiful, it's an astonishing mimicry of the world around him. Chainsaws, car alarms, camera shutters, other birds, even human voices. If he hears it, he might repeat it. And his mimicry isn't sloppy. It's stunningly accurate. So much so that some of his calls can fool not only other animals, but even humans. Birdwatchers have been tricked into thinking there's a whole flock nearby, only to realize it's one lyrebird playing every role in the choir. Why go to such lengths? The answer, once again, is love. Male lyrebirds craft elaborate courtship arenas, small stages cleared in the underbrush where they sing and perform to attract females. And the more complex and impressive the mimicry, the better his chances of passing on his genes. It's an evolutionary arms race of creativity. Imagine being selected not just for your strength or your feathers, but for how convincing your performance is. That's the lyrebird's reality. It's nature's version of Broadway. But sound doesn't always mean beauty. Some creatures use it for fear. Take the pistol shrimp. For instance, a creature that weaponizes noise in a very different way. This tiny shrimp, just a few centimeters long, has one oversized claw, but it's not for grabbing, it's for snapping. With a quick contraction, the claw closes so fast it creates a cavitation bubble, a pocket of air that collapses with a sharp pop. That collapse generates sound waves strong enough to stun prey or even kill small fish. The temperatures inside the collapsing bubble can momentarily reach nearly for 700 degrees Celsius. That's hotter than the surface of the sun. And the snap is one of the loudest biological sounds in the ocean. That's right. One of the loudest creatures in the ocean is a shrimp. These shrimp even team up with gobies, small fish that act as lookouts while the shrimp digs a shared burrow. In exchange, the shrimp provides protection and real estate. It's a partnership. built on communication, trust, and perhaps a shared love of sonic shock waves and from thunderous snaps. Let's pivot to stillness, to one of the strangest visual illusions in nature. The glass frog, native to Central and South America. The glass frog gets its name from its translucent skin. Its belly is nearly see-through, revealing the organs inside: heart, liver, intestines, even eggs in females. It's as if someone took a regular frog and replaced its underside with frosted glass. But why? Scientists aren't entirely sure. One theory suggests it helps with camouflage. When the frog rests on a leaf, its transparent belly allows the color of the leaf to show through, helping the frog blend into its environment. It creates a kind of visual ambiguity rather than appearing as a distinct silhouette. The frog bleeds into the background. It's another form of hiding, one built not on mimicry or motion, but on optical uncertainty. Glass frogs are also extraordinary parents. In some species, the males guard the eggs, keeping them moist by sitting on them and fighting off predators. They've even been observed peeing on their own eggs to hydrate them during dry periods, an oddly tender act of amphibian care. And in a world filled with harsh trade-offs, that kind of investment in offspring is rare and admirable. But not all creatures survive by hiding. Some thrive by changing themselves entirely, like the axolotl. The axolotl, or Ambystoma mexicanum, is a type of salamander native to the lakes of central Mexico. It's known for its permanently juvenile state, a condition called neoteny. While most amphibians undergo metamorphosis, transforming from aquatic larvae to land-dwelling adults, the axolotl skips that final step. It retains its gills, lives in water, and keeps its larval appearance into adulthood. And yet, it becomes sexually mature. It's a creature that grows up without growing up. And here's the kicker: the axolotl is a regeneration master. It can regrow entire limbs, spinal cords, parts of its heart, and even sections of its brain. The regrown tissue isn't scarred, it's fully functional, complete with bones, muscles, and nerves. Scientists have even transplanted organs between axolotls without rejection. How? The exact mechanisms are still being studied, but it likely involves a specialized group of cells that behave like stem cells, capable of transforming into any needed tissue. In a way, the axolotl rewinds its biology at the site of injury and rebuilds the missing parts from scratch. This incredible regenerative power has made the axolotl a darling of medical research. It holds clues to healing, anti-aging, and maybe even reversing degenerative disease. But in the wild, it's in trouble. Habitat loss and pollution have devastated its numbers. Despite its immortality tricks, it remains one of the most endangered amphibians on Earth. And that's a haunting contradiction, isn't it? An animal that can regrow nearly anything, but can't regrow its home now, from regeneration. Let's explore another boundary pusher, the planarian flatworm. Chop one in half, and you don't get one dead worm, you get two live ones. And it doesn't stop there. If you cut a planarian into dozens of pieces, each piece can regenerate into a fully functional worm. Their regenerative abilities are so advanced, they've become a favorite in biology classrooms and research labs. Planarians don't just regrow, they regrow with identity. If you cut off the head, the new one remembers old maze paths. That's right, planarians seem to retain memories even after regrowing a new brain. This has led to wild experiments. In one case, scientists trained worms to prefer a dark environment. Then they chopped off their heads. When the heads grew back, the worms still avoided the light. Somehow, the memory had survived the decapitation. The mechanism behind this is still a mystery. It may involve epigenetic changes or storage of information outside the brain. But whatever the case, planarians show us that identity, memory, and body are more fluid concepts than we once believed. And perhaps that's the theme, isn't it? Throughout this journey through mimicry and transparency, regeneration and illusion, we've seen that life doesn't follow a single path. It twists, loops, folds in on itself. It adapts, improvises, and finds loopholes. And the creatures that seem the strangest are often the ones that push our understanding the furthest. Because what's truly bizarre isn't that these creatures exist, but that they've existed all along, quietly rewriting the rules of biology while we've barely noticed. And now, as we bring this journey to a close, we return to a simple truth. The natural world is far stranger, more creative, and more astonishing than we give it credit for. We often imagine the frontier of science as something far off: rockets to Mars, quantum computers, AI, but the real frontier is often right beneath our feet. In the mud, in the leaves, in the cells of a salamander's limb, or the shimmer of a jellyfish's bell. These aren't just curiosities, they are blueprints. Proof that biology doesn't run on one model. It runs on possibility, and if we pay attention, we can start to see the patterns. We've seen that survival isn't about dominance. The strongest animals aren't always the loudest or the fastest. Sometimes they're the ones that vanish into seaweed or that build glass armor. At the bottom of the ocean, the ones that curl into dusty balls for decades or shrink back into childhood when life gets tough. The ones that give up parts of themselves to live another day, or that manipulate others into doing the hard work. The lesson is clear. Evolution doesn't reward power. It rewards adaptability. Sometimes that means regenerating a brain. Sometimes that means dancing like your life depends on it, because it does. These creatures challenge how we define life, and maybe even intelligence. When a plant remembers not to close its leaves after repeated touches, when a worm keeps a memory after regrowing a new brain, when a fungus sends warnings across a forest, what are we looking at? Reflex, instinct, or something more? Our definitions are changing, slowly, uneasily, but they're changing. And that might be the most important takeaway. That our understanding of life is not fixed. It's as flexible and evolving as life itself. In recent years, scientists have begun to reevaluate long-held assumptions. We used to think tool use was uniquely human, then we saw birds crafting hooks from twigs. We thought empathy was ours alone. Then we watched elephants mourn their dead, and rats free each other from traps. We believed intelligence required a brain. Then came the slime mold, solving mazes without one, over and over. Nature reminds us, it's not just about what something is, it's about what it does. A sponge with no nerves can inspire better architecture. A see-through frog can teach us about camouflage and care. A shrimp's sonic punch can reshape how we think about energy. These aren't just animal facts. They're signposts, clues, pointing toward deeper truths. In a way, this entire journey has been about shaking loose our assumptions. We like our categories: predator and prey, smart and dumb, alive and dead. But nature doesn't care about categories. It blurs them. And that's what makes it so endlessly fascinating. And let's not forget, we're a part of this story too. We're not outside observers, we're animals. Evolved, adapted, struggling, thriving. We build cities, the way termites build mounds. We communicate in networks like fungi. We defend ourselves with tools like crabs with bottle caps. We care for our young, compete for mates, play, learn, and mourn. The difference isn't that we're separate. It's that we've taken the strange magic of biology and added reflection. We look at a spider's dance and feel admiration. We see a jellyfish's glow and feel wonder. We recognize beauty where once we saw only weirdness. And in doing so, we come closer to understanding not just the world, but ourselves. Because maybe we're not here to conquer nature. Maybe we're here to witness it, to learn from it, to see it for what it truly is, wild, brilliant, and endlessly inventive. So, the next time you walk outside, whether it's into a rainforest, a city park, or just your backyard, look closer. Watch the leaves, follow the ants, listen to the birds. Sit still long enough for something strange to reveal itself, because it will, and when it does, you'll remember what you've always known deep down, that the world is still full of mystery. That the most wondrous things are often the ones that move quietly, glow gently, and live lives so unlike ours we barely notice them until we finally do. And in that noticing, a door opens. To awe, to humility, to connection. Thank you for coming along on this journey. Life is bizarre. Life is beautiful. And in all its weird, wandering forms, life goes on. Good night, fellow explorer. May your dreams be just a little stranger and a lot more wonderful.